This demo covers the process of spit biting an intaglio plate. I am beginning with a plate that already has etched lines on it. This is how it looks printed. You can see it already has quite a bit of character. It's handy to have already printed the plate because you can now use this as a guide. Begin by degreasing the plate. Spit biting is more effective with an aquatint in place, so that is the first step. For this demo, I'm using spray paint. Metallic spray paints yield a better result because the individual droplets retain their round shape when they make contact with the plate, rather than splattering as the non-metallic colors do. In a well-ventilated area, set the plate against some cardboard at a roughly 45-degree angle. Shake the can for at least 15 seconds after you hear the bearing mixing. This will take longer in cold weather. Spray off to the side of the plate to be sure there isn't a clog or the can isn't spitty. Spraying from about a foot away, aim for a 50% coverage as you sweep the can from side to side. The spray should always start and stop off the edge of the plate. Remember that you are applying an acid resist, so if it's too thick and there aren't spaces between the droplets, it can completely block the mordant from reaching the metal. If you make a mistake, the spray paint will come off with rubbing alcohol. If there are areas you wish to stop out, do so now. I'm using the SCO Stop Out. This is a type of acrylic ground that is water-soluble and non-toxic. It can be painted onto plates for use as a ground, used for correcting mistakes, or as a stopping out agent, like in this case. Before using, shake the container to homogenize the components and put a small amount in a glass dish. This resist can be diluted with water to create soft edges and other wash-like effects. You can do this on the plate itself or mix a solution in ratios of up to 1 part resist to 9 parts water. Here I am painting the stop out on the plate. This plate is degreased, so I am using a little lift to keep my hand elevated. A ruler propped on 2 erasers or just a clean piece of paper laid flat on the plate could work for this as well. Before drying, Lascaux can be washed from the brush with warm, soapy water. Before continuing, allow the stop out to air dry, which it does quickly. With the stop out dry, it's time to mix the mordant. You can use ferric chloride for this, but I'm using a mixture of 3 tablespoons vinegar, 2 tablespoons hydrogen peroxide, and 3/4 of a teaspoon salt. This needs to be well stirred to prevent the salt from settling. This will need to be combined with a wetting agent to reduce the etchant's surface tension and make it easier to spread over the surface of the plate without beating up. There are 2 ways to do this, with spit or with gum arabic. For the first option, you will spit directly on the plate before painting on the mordant. For the second option, mix 1 part water, 1 part gum arabic, and 2 parts mordant. Mix a fresh batch when you plan to use it rather than storing this solution because the mordant will fall after a few days. For this demo, I spit directly on the plate and then began painting the mordant on in that area. Like with nitric, you can see the chemical reaction taking place on the plate, indicated by the bubbles and blue tinge. However, like ferric chloride, it's a weaker mordant and will likely need multiple applications to achieve darker values. The amount of mordant you apply and the strength of it determine the depth of the bite. It is typically active for about 15 minutes before it becomes exhausted. At this point, the acid will cease bubbling and become dull. You can stop the etch or remove acid by blotting the plate with a paper towel. When you are finished, rinse the plate and determine if you would like a second application. Keep an eye on the spray paint though, because it will eventually weaken and start lifting off. Although this mixture is fairly gentle, you can spice it up by adding more salt. Here I've added an additional ½ teaspoon of salt. You can see how much quicker the reaction takes place. Because it's hotter now, I have to keep an eye on the aquatint to be sure it isn't getting burnt away. When you are finished, rubbing alcohol will remove both the aquatint and the Lascaux Stop Out. Now the plate is ready to print. When you are finished with the mordant, you can add a bit of baking soda. Be sure to do this over a drain because it foams rapidly, and then run water as you pour it down the sink. The mordant cannot be stored and will weaken drastically over the next few days. The more salt you've added, the faster it weakens. Let's look at the evolution of the plate. Here it is before spit biting, and here it is after. This is a very subtle surface alteration, easy to scrape away and manipulate. That also means easy to overwipe, so I don't recommend doing any paper wiping with a spit bite plate. Try to rely on palm wiping as much as possible.